Welcome to It's Not You, It's Grief, a safe space to have candid conversations surrounding the many faces of grief. How do you handle the process while moving forward and ultimately getting back to living in the moment? Come on this journey as we navigate grief through the art of storytelling. And now for your host, Ahira Smith.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another fabulous episode of It's Not You, It's Grief. My name is Ahira Smith, certified grief coach from Grief to Life. Thank you all so much for joining me on this special Father's Day edition. I have the pleasure of having a phenomenal gentleman with me who happens to be a classmate of mine from the Kentucky State University, fellow thoroughbred, who also happens to be a member of Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity Incorporated, originally from Toledo, but he's certainly a native resident right now of Cincinnati, Ohio. And he also happens to be a route sales representative of Aramark Uniform. He is a very passionate man when it comes to his family, his relationship with the Lord, his community, and he loves to talk about both his family, his race, and his father more than anything else. Not to say he don't love not to say he don't love no one else, but trust me, this man right here is truly his father's son, the late Mr. Ernest C. Jones Sr. And you know what? I'm so proud to have this gentleman on my show today because I want you to hear his story on how he has made strives to be better in terms of how he's handling the loss, in terms of his father transitioning, as well as what it's taught him as he has become a father himself. And without further ado, I'd like to give Mr. Ernest C. Jones Jr. the floor. Hey, Ernie.
Hey, how are you?
I'm good. How are you, brother?
I'm blessed by the best.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you so much again, Ernie. I know it's been a minute since you and I have talked, but I've always been watching you, brother, on our Facebook page and just your words of wisdom and sharing your stories with your dad. I couldn't think of a better person to have on this special Father's Day episode. And I want you to continue to talk about your dad and really share with my audience, who your father was and what he not only meant to you but to the community, because I know he was very influential, not only in the city you all lived in, but really across the state and even that within the fraternity itself. So if you would be so kind to just kind of tell us about who Mr. Ernest C. Jones Sr. was about, and we'll go from there.
Hello. Yes. Thank you so much. Yes, my dad. Happy Father's Day to everyone. But again, my dad is where it all started. Um, he is one of he was one of the most genuine and was about the community. He was an African American art teacher for 35 plus years. Um, 25 of those years was at a high school, and he taught all of his students about the culture, about where we come from. And that right there, it led him to do seminars. He also taught at the University of Toledo, African American Studies. Um, my dad was all about the community, as I stated before. When I grew up, um, the the city of Toledo was kind of in turmoil because the gangs came in to play in the late 80s. And my dad was responsible for the University of Toledo. He ran the NYSP up there, the National Youth Sports Program. And that program had almost 600 kids from across the city come to the University of Toledo, where the University of Toledo bussed these kids from every different neighborhood from 10 to 16, brought them in, they fed them lunch, and then they fed them snack. They had group leaders, and they done different sports throughout the program. They done swimming, they done karate, they done basketball, they done track. And for 6 hours out of the day, 12 to 6 p.m., there was no gang violence.
Wow.
There was no gang violence. My father raised that program along with his staff, raised that program to fifth in the nation out of 300 colleges across the nation. He raised the University of Toledo for 20 plus years. He raised it all the way to fifth in the nation.
Wow. That's phenomenal.
Yeah, so my dad he was definitely important to the city. He gave everyone a sense of pride. He wanted everyone to know where they came from. He wanted everyone to know about Africa. He wanted everyone to know about your culture, know about what it was to be Black. And even it wasn't just geared toward African American students. He wanted Caucasian people and all other ethnicities to know what it was to be Black, know where different things came from, different inventors that was African American. He taught all of this. And like I said, my father, he also painted pictures. And his one picture that was his masterpiece was he took it to New York, a New York art show in the mid 70s. And it was appraised for $25,000, and he never sold it. The name of that masterpiece was Ghetto Bathroom. My dad came from Alabama. Him and his family moved up to Toledo when he was younger. He had almost nine brothers and sisters, and if not more. I do apologize, but at any rate, he made that picture. It was a picture where he painted his mother cleaning out the bathtub, and they did not have anything. Growing up in the South and then coming up north, it was a picture of his mother cleaning out the bathroom. And he made sure, his mother made sure that whenever they went out, they was going to be clean. They may have had to share clothes, but she washed those clothes in that bathtub. They were going to be clean. They all took baths in that bathtub. Of course, they were going to be clean. Whenever they walked out, that was her main thing. She made sure that all of her kids were going to be clean. And that's where the name of that masterpiece came from. And my dad, as I said, he painted pictures. He painted pictures, and his artwork can be seen from coast to coast and from the north to the south in Michigan and all the way down as far as Mississippi. His artwork is out in Las Vegas. He has artwork in New York. So my father is his legacy is definitely shown, through his artwork. And I may not be able to paint the way the way that he did, but I'm definitely able to draw with the best of them. I couldn't see color like my father did. My father painted portraits of different people that still hang in their houses today. They send me pictures of, artwork that my father painted for them. And, I may not be able to see color the way that he's seen it, but I could draw, and that right there, knowing that I got that skill from him, that puts me at a place of ease. you know, and even currently, you know, when I get in one of my moods where I think about him, I start drawing. I may separate myself from everyone and go in the room and just start drawing, you know, but you know, it was definitely hard. He passed away on October the 26th, 2010. And the 12 years, it'll be 13 this October, but the 12 years that he has been gone, it hasn't been easy, you know, but I haven't had a chance to officially grieve, even though it's been 12 years. I feel as if I still haven't had the chance to really grieve his death. You know, and one of the reasons, I mean, as soon as he passed away, I became the man of the family, and I wasn't ready for that. You know, we seen that everything was coming. He was in hospice, and we knew that it was coming, you know, his passing, but at the same time, I was not ready, no matter how much you prepare for. I was not ready. And I became, like I said, the man of the family, and I still haven't got that the way that he had. You know, so I often tell people that knew my dad and they knew, you know, growing up, I was underneath of him. You couldn't go any place without seeing me by his side, you know. So as I've gotten older, you know, and everyone says, you know, hey, you look like your dad. As when I hear comments like that, I think to myself, you know, I am my father's namesake, you know, and I have a son, and you know, he is his grandfather's namesake. He is the third, you know, but to me, I always felt like it was a gift and a curse to be my father's namesake.
Wow.
I only say that because, you know, it's a gift to have his name. Yes, but it's a curse to not be able to live up to who he once was. You know, and that's painful, you know, because I'll never be able to walk in my father's shoes. My father's seen so much, you know, but like I said, I often feel as if that is a gift and a curse to have his name and to be his namesake. And I try and get through it. I try and find ways to get through it. And like I said, drawing, not painting, drawing is one of my outlets. You know, it's an outlet for me. You know, I may not have been the best son, you know, but at the same time, I have something besides my father's name attached, and I have his skill set, you know. So I try my best to do what I can do to live up to his name, but at the same time, like I said, understanding that I'm not him, I'll never be him, you know, it's painful at times. So
Understood.
I try and get through it. I try
Understood.
my best to get through it.
I understand. I do. And so, and I know, as you said, it's been 12 years, soon to be 13 in October. I still, you know, lift you up in my prayers, brother, because I know that relationship between you and your father was just as close as it was between me and my dad. And honestly, Ernie, even though you may not have the the skill set or the gift in your mind as far as your creativity is concerned, the one thing I do remember when we were in school about your father, that, and because again, he had that artistry style just like my dad had that world of artistry. But one thing about both our fathers that I'd like to say without question, the one thing that they loved more than anything was the family, their kids. And I know your father loved you to infinity and beyond,
Yeah.
because you just saw that. The relationship that you had with him and vice versa, that was a bond that could not have been broken. Yeah, you might have had moments where you, like you said, you might not have been the best son, but your father loved you unconditionally. And
Mm.
you, I see him in you when you're like that with your own children, especially your son. So I'm telling from me to you, please understand that you are very much Ernie C. Jones in your own right, because
Yes.
that love is unparalleled.
Right.
So please know that from me to you, like you're my family, like my brother from school. This is what we do. I'm telling you, the love that your father had shown to you, and even what you just stated about his love for the community, that's all within you. Your
Yeah.
father instilled all of that within you to be able to pass on to your own children and to those who have been fortunate enough to be in your presence and work alongside with you. So please know that. And I wanted to tell you that first before we went into the line of questioning, because I hear what you're saying. It's not easy when you have a parent or parents that are held in such high regard, and that comparison, or people like, oh, you look like your mother, or you look like your father, or you act just like them, and it takes your mind into a place where like, I'll never be them. But trust me, I I I'd like to feel I truly believe that your father is just so proud of you, of
Yeah.
everything that you have been through, everything that you've gone through, all the tests and trials that you have been through, brother. He's proud of you. He
Yeah.
is
And
proud of you.
my father would have done, or he did do, anything for me and my family.
Exactly.
You know, my sisters, my mom, all of the above, and at the same time, when I speak of the community, I had so many brothers and sisters that my father took in,
Mm,
because a lot of his students didn't have fathers in their lives.
yep.
And
Yep.
my father would get them jobs. My
Hmm.
father would write letters for them to get into college.
Yep.
And see, what my dad also done was, when he went to teach at the University of Toledo,
Hmm.
within that realm, my father would do seminars at different universities, and he actually came down to Kentucky State.
Hmm.
The Kappas actually had him come down and do a seminar down there. He brought his artwork down there.
Yep.
So, I mean, my father, he reached out across the country,
Absolutely.
and when I say I'm proud to be his namesake, that I am. I know I may have stumbled along the way, but at the same time, he's still looking down on me. And at the same time, he's definitely, um, I want to say, talking with God to make sure that I end up where I need to be.
Absolutely. I think that's safe to say that's what our parents are doing, because we're still their child, even though we
Right.
may be grown, paying taxes, be struggling to deal with daily physical activities with our aches and
Yeah.
sore knees and everything. I do believe our parents are still talking to God and be like, look, we gotta help them.
Yeah.
Now they know what it's
Yeah.
like. Now they know when they get up in the morning and feel those aches. They used to look at us and ha ha ha, and now they're like, now we know.
Now we know. Now
They're
we
still
know.
teaching us. They're still teaching us. So I get it. I get it. So throughout that time when you lost your father in 2010, because I know you mentioned your dad was in hospice, and that's a very tricky, sensitive subject itself. And when your father had made that transition, what initial, what was your views on grief itself? Like, even before your dad made that transition, what were your beliefs or your ideas on what grief was like?
I didn't know what I was going to do. I didn't
Okay.
know how I was going to feel about the whole situation. And what made the situation even worse is that my mom called me. I was down here in Cincinnati. My mom called me and said, you know, they're saying that your dad only has so much time. We need you to come home. Well, I came home and I probably stayed home for maybe 2 days. And
Mm,
they said, well, he's doing a lot better.
okay.
He's doing a lot better.
Okay.
And my mom said, okay, well, go ahead and go back down and we'll keep you caught up on what's going on up here.
Okay.
I said, okay. So I went back down to Cincinnati. And when I got back down to Cincinnati the next day, I went to work. Everything was fine. The next day, 2 days after, I went to work, and 8 o'clock in the morning, I was on my way to an appointment, and I got the phone call from my mother saying that my dad had passed.
Mm,
And that right there started my anger. Like I said, I didn't know what grief really was. I didn't know how. I know that there was 5 stages of grief,
mm,
but that started my anger because here I was just there 2 days ago,
mm,
and you gave him somewhat of a thumbs up. He's doing pretty good. And now 2 days later, my mom calls me saying, your dad passed. And this was like maybe 8:30, 9 o'clock in the morning. And I didn't get a chance to talk to him before he passed.
mm,
So this started out, my grief started out, I don't want to say not on a good foot, but it was like I jumped right to anger.
okay.
I jumped right to anger. It wasn't the denial,
Mhm,
because that's the first stage. It wasn't the denial because we knew it was coming.
mhm,
We knew it was coming. We prepared for it.
mhm,
But at the same time, I went home. I tried to spend time with him, saying that, everything is sort of okay.
mhm,
You can come home the next weekend.
mhm,
Well, 2 days later, I got that phone call, and it's like I didn't get my chance to say goodbye.
mm,
I'm
okay.
down here in Cincinnati.
Okay. So you,
So
yeah, so you felt like you were robbed?
I was robbed.
Okay.
And like I said, I jumped right to anger. There
Mm,
was no denial. Anger is the second stage. I jumped right to I skipped over denial
mhm,
because we had already prepared for what was to come,
mhm,
but I didn't get a chance to get my last words in.
mhm,
So I really wasn't prepared on how grief would hit me. And like I said, I didn't know how grief felt. Like I said, I'm still not at that point where I'm able to accept my father passing, the last stage of grief. I'm still not 12 years in, and I'm still not at that point. And I say I'm still not at that point because if I was there at that point, I wouldn't envy every person that still has their father and that they can see them, spend time with them on Father's Day.
mm,
If I was at that last stage where I'm able to accept my father passing and I've completed the grief, then I wouldn't envy anyone. But at the same time, I'm not in that acceptance portion. I still have not accepted that. 12 years in, and I still have not accepted that. You know,
Tell me something. Do you ever feel like, they say about the typical 5 stages of grief, but do you ever feel like you're just like all over the place when you look at
all
those
of a sudden,
stages? You're just like, you would think on a piece of paper where it says, oh, you're in denial, or you're bargaining, or you're anger, this, that, and the other. You feel like it's going to be like A, then B, then C, then D. But like you said, you went straight to anger, and then one day you're like accepted. You're like all over the place. It's not. There's no blueprint to this.
yeah,
There
none
is
at all.
no blueprint to this. And just like we talked about before we started, um, this is some this is heavy. This is so heavy because of the simple fact is we're not prepared for it. We're not prepared for it, no matter, like you said, you already knew it was coming, but you're not prepared for it. And even in the way that it I don't want to say it was thrust upon you, but the aftermath of it all, now you had to be the man of the household. Now you had to be the man in the family. And that in itself is a grief because you're like, I'm not ready. My
Yeah,
dad has taught me all of this, and I'm in my 30s, and I'm still don't feel like I'm ready to hand on
yeah,
that responsibility. I got to take care of moms, I got my sister, I got my significant other, and absolutely. And so
yeah,
you know what, honestly, it is a roller coaster ride. And I in my belief, I don't think it's something we'll ever get over, because we grieve, you and I and everybody who's listening or watching this, we grieve so deeply because that's how much we love those people so deeply. It's at that same level. So
right,
we're not gonna ever stop grieving, um per se, with our loved ones who are not here. We're gonna miss them, but as it I think it's just something we have to learn to move forward with it, that it may not hurt as much as it initially did, or it may hurt just as much 7 years later on the birthday, or you might hear a song that just resonated with you so deeply to the point where, you got tears coming down your eyes because you missed them or you remember that conversation. I just believe that everybody's journey is written just for them when it comes to grief and loss. And it's just important that I heard a term last week when I was talking to a fellow thoroughbred, and she was sharing her message regarding losing her father as well years ago when she was a child. I think it's but she put it so eloquently, saying that we have to get to a point where we need to honor the grief and recognize what it really means to us. And part of the way we do that is by giving ourselves permission to grieve. We
right,
live in a society where we're not allowed to grieve for for this or that other reason. When you sit there and think about different companies or businesses, what do? They give you like 3 days of bereavement, and then they expect you to come back to work and act like nothing's happened. That's not real. That's not life.
that's
That's
not reality.
that's not reality, So I think it's important that when we do move forward with it, and if the moment hits us to where we're upset because our dads are not here, that we honor the grief, we honor the moment, and then recognize the fact that, guess what, it's okay. I think
Right,
it's important to understand it is okay for us to do that, because that was our father. That was your dad. That was my dad. It was this person's dad, or anybody that they've lost.
right.
That's our relationship. And just, you know, it differs. I mean, because I'm sure the relationship that you had with your dad definitely is different from that of your sister and your father.
Right.
It's different. So I think it's important for us as we get older and as we are teaching this to our kids that, it's just part of the journey as far as life is concerned, and that we recognize and we honor it for what it's worth, and still know that it's okay to move forward with it, to get back to living in the present moment. I think that's important that we continue to be examples of that. So,
Right. Just piggybacking off of, you say earlier, you said that, if you hear something or even the date, hear a song that was played, or
mhm,
even the date that um my dad passed on,
mhm,
those are different hard times
mhm, mhm,
that may come about when you hear that song, or when October 26th is. That's a numb day for me.
yeah,
That's a numb day for me.
yeah,
But with that being a numb day, that's his ending date, even his beginning date. You know, I'm definitely numb on his birthday, in which I really shouldn't be,
mm,
because his birthday is February 14th, Valentine's Day.
wow,
So when there's hearts and everyone is talking about love and all of the above, that's his beginning.
yeah,
So while everyone is happy on that day and sharing good times on that day, it's a double-edged sword for me, because yes, I wanna enjoy the bears and the candy and the heart shapes and the teddy bears and all of the above, but at the same time, in the front of my mind, I'm not even gonna say in the back of my mind, that's my dad's birthday. So
understood.
that day is as equal to his ending date,
Mm,
and I'm numb on that day. And I really shouldn't be, because I have a wife
mhm,
that she deserves Valentine's Day in the way Valentine's Day should be presented to her.
mhm.
But at the same time, I find myself thinking about my dad and not being able to put all of my attention towards her. So, like I said, even his beginning day is like a double-edged sword, and that's February 14th, Valentine's Day.
You know what though, Ernie? The fact that you acknowledge it and the fact that you're able to be so transparent about that, brother, honestly, again, that's okay, because at least you're not in denial.
Right.
At least you own up to it. And then, so perhaps with this platform, or, with you continuing to speak candidly about the impact of your father's life, his beginning and end came to be, perhaps this will help you with towards your healing. You know what I mean? You
Yeah.
may not be able to celebrate the entire day, with your beautiful wife, but guess what? You may be able to celebrate your father's birthday in the morning, meditate, play, look at a digital album of your father's beautiful portraits, or even, reciting his favorite prayer, or, wear something of his, maybe a handkerchief or a tie that belonged to him. And then perhaps maybe you can switch it over to where, you know what, let me just spend a few hours with my wife, letting her know how much I appreciate her being by my side through all of it. There's so many ways to celebrate our loved ones, even when they're not with us, because please know, you know this as much as I do, that our dads are still with us even when they're not, because everything that they have taught us, we have been able to still hold on in terms of the values, in terms of our morals, in terms of our integrity and accountability, to the best of our ability, that we're able to carry that on with those we interact with. So You know, how you feel is nothing wrong. There's
Right.
nothing wrong with it. It's how it is, you know, and that's why it's important for us to support each other on those times when we're having some difficulty, because it can be lonely. It really
Right.
can be lonely. However, it doesn't mean we have to be alone while we're going through this journey. And that's why it's important for us to have these candid conversations. So, one of the things I'd like to know, and I would love for you to share, is how has your spiritual practice changed, um, if at all? You know, when because I know your father was very much a spiritual man, as my dad was very much as spiritual in his faith as well. How has it changed? How has that shaped you when it came to grief and loss? And what has it taught you in terms of hope and strength and courage?
Well, prayer definitely. Prayer definitely. My godfather was a Catholic priest. So I was introduced to the Catholic Church at a young age. He actually married me. So we had two pastors, my wife's pastor, and then my pastor, which was my godfather, the Catholic priest. So I was introduced to the Catholic Church at a young age, and then following my dad um, into Baptist. So I, me falling back on prayer, my father taught us how to pray, and sometimes two prayers are better than one.
Mm.
So, when I was too lazy to pray for myself, I would have to reach out to others to either pray for me or pray with me. So, that was definitely part of my growth, in trying to find hope and strength and all of the above. Um, but me reading, getting back into the Bible, um, God doesn't have a respected person, so like they say, a lot of so many of us are chosen, so many are called on, but few are chosen.
Mhm.
So with that being said, just reading Genesis, you know, and how Joseph was cast out by his family, and he had to go through all of the things that he had to go through. And even David in Psalms, when he had to go through everything he had to go through before his fight with the giant, you know, never once did they ask why. Why God? Why is this happening to me? So when I go to my pastor and I ask him about these many different situations, he tells me, just be patient. Be patient. Everything will come. As far as, your strength, you know, that'll come back. Your hope, you got to keep it. Keep the faith in God, because at the same time, you can have a great friend base, but he's the only one that's going to get you through what you're going through. I never really hit the depression stage when my father passed away,
Okay.
because, like I said, quote unquote, I was thrust into being the man of the family.
Mm.
So even that night, and I didn't go out and drink and, you know, smoke and all of that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
No, I didn't hit that. I separated myself, and with me separating myself, I may have thrown myself into the job. I may have started drawing. I did not, I was trying my best to figure out how I could deal with the situation at hand. And that situation at hand is my dad no longer being here.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to find different outlets. And it started with the Bible and me reading a little more and a little more and a little more, and just like I said, understanding how God picked those two people, Joseph and David,
Mm-hmm.
and they all had their issues, their different issues at different times. They both had their different issues, but never once did they ask, why me, God? Why am I having to go through this?
Mm-hmm.
You chose me to do, or you wanted me to do this. But God said, you're going to have to go through some things to get where I want you to be. And it was hard because I'm not a patient type of person. I like to control the clock.
Mm.
I
Mm.
like to control the clock. But the more that I say I want to control the clock, the more God puts it in perspective to say, you're not going to do anything without my approval.
Facts.
And this is when when God finally decides, it's okay to cry out. Because, growing up, you're taught to subdue everything, subdue your feelings.
Mm-hmm.
Subdue your feelings.
Mm-hmm.
But it's okay to cry out. When God says it's okay to cry out, then that's when I would definitely feel at ease. I would definitely feel at ease.
Absolutely. And you really hit it on the nail by saying, the way we were raised, we weren't taught to express ourselves like that, especially in the African American community.
Correct.
We weren't, especially for you all as men. We weren't taught to express ourselves when we're hurting or we're grieving, or just, in a moment of just displacement. You're like, suck it up. Don't,
Because
just
society does not
right,
care.
right. So you don't show it, don't show no weakness. And even for us, and I obviously I think it's just generation on top of generation. You take it to the church, leave it there, and that's it. However, there is so much more that's happening in the world that, you know, again, people have a choice to either do something constructive to move forward with it in terms of healing, or do something deconstructive that could be harmful to them, so that, or they cannot think about it in even if it's just temporary. But then, when you wake up from that binge, or when you wake up from that hazy feeling like, what's this? What did I do? Then it makes things even worse. It's like, I didn't start off like this, but now because I did something that wasn't right, or wasn't something that was good for me, now I'm worse off than when I started. So, it's just part of the journey, man. Like we said, we our experience, everything that we have been through, and I mean we as in general people, have been lessons. All of this is teaching us different types of lessons. And it's important that we do continue to hold on to our belief system and know that it may not feel great right now. However, it will be better. And when you mentioned about time, you're not a patient person and you like to control everything. One thing my grandmother on my dad's side of the family always told us that God has a way of removing everything and anything out of his way to get your undivided attention.
Right.
And that time itself is doing its job. Time is doing what it's supposed to do. So if we stop trying to control it, we might be able to walk the path that we're supposed to walk on, and understand that now the present is just that. Sometimes I feel that if we stop trying to wish for something that happened yesterday, if we stop trying to make something happen yesterday today, I think a lot of people would be able to continue to move forward. You know what I mean? We can't control what happened yesterday. We can't.
Right.
Time is doing its job. Now we have to do our job as far as living for the present moment. We can't worry about tomorrow, and we certainly can't change what happened yesterday. So definitely get that. So we're kind of I want to switch it up a little bit, because I know, again, your father has been so influential in your life as far as what it means to be the man that you are. And I know his influence has also shaped you in terms of how you've been such a wonderful father to your 3 children. A question that I have is what has your father taught you when it came to be a father itself? And was your son born at the time when your father was still with us?
Yes, my son was born 2008,
Okay.
and he briefly got a chance to sit with his granddad.
Okay. 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 So what what words of wisdom did your father share with you when you were about to become a dad yourself?
Hmm. My dad once said, hmm, hard times come when you're trying to do right.
Mm,
That's when hard times will come.
mm,
You know, when you're doing wrong, everything may seem easy.
mm,
You can have all the money in the world, and how you getting that money, it may be easy to you. But when you're trying to do good, that's when the hard times is going to come. That's when you're going to have to persevere and get through. And I seen that when my son was born with a heart disease.
mm,
Here I am trying to um, follow in my dad's footsteps. And my firstborn, my son, was born with a heart disease that was not even discovered in prenatal.
oh wow.
Um, hmm. When I went to pick my wife and my son up from the hospital, they took my son down to the nursery for my
Mm,
wife to take a shower and get ready to leave out. And he stopped breathing down there in the nursery. They had to put him on his heart and everything stopped down there. He was born with a half a heart. The other half was underdeveloped.
Oh, wow.
So, needless to say, they rushed him down to Children's Hospital here in Cincinnati, which is the second best children's hospital in the nation. And within a week, he had heart surgery, 10-hour heart surgery. For the next month, we lived in the hospital.
Mm.
Those are hard times. Those are hard times. And I went down to the chapel, because of course at that time my father's health was declining, so he couldn't travel. My mom couldn't travel. My wife is originally from Cincinnati, so her family was here, but I was the only one down here from my family.
Mm-hmm.
So my dad said, go down to the chapel. Every morning I started out my morning down at the chapel before we went and got breakfast. So when my dad told me that, when he gave me those words of wisdom, hard times come when you're trying to do right, that will always stick with me. And you said you asked about the shirt that I have on, EJ Strong. My son has had 4 heart surgeries. 4 heart surgeries. 3 of them were planned. The 4th one was a year ago, and they went in to fine tune what was done the first 3 heart surgeries, and they were deciding whether to put him on the heart transplant list or see if they would be able to, correct him and keep him off of that list. And they ended up giving him a pacemaker, which was unexpected.
Mm.
And my son is only 15 years old.
Wow.
4 heart surgeries, 15 years old. But the one good thing about him having all of these heart surgeries is he probably wouldn't remember very much any of it. He probably won't. If we had heart surgeries when we were grown up, we will remember everything. But with him having these heart surgeries at a young age, he's not going to remember very much of it besides the scar on his chest. But, he's our blessing. He's our blessing.
Absolutely.
And the crazy thing is, I spoke of my dad's birthday being February 14th. My son's birthday is February 27th. And for those that don't know, the month of February is National Heart Month.
Wow. Look at that.
National Heart Month. My son was born on the last day of the month, besides leap year. And that comes every, 4 to 5 years?
4 years.
4 years. So he was born on the last day of the month. And, I kind of put that correlation with, okay, my dad was born on a day of hearts. My son is born on the last day of the month of February, which is National Heart Month. So I don't know what God was trying to say, but he definitely said it to us. And he's our blessing. I can't have bad days when I look at him. Our family can't have bad days when we look at him because he's been through so much. So again, I say he's our blessing, and when he was first born, they say he wouldn't make it past the age of 5.
Wow.
The statistics was he was one of 3 children to survive the heart disease that he had. One of 3 children, and not expected to make it past 5. But modern day medicine, modern day research, has gave him extra years, and we're definitely thankful for that.
It's interesting. Again, the doctors and statistics say he wouldn't make it past 5, and now your son is 15 years old. You can't say they ain't nothing but God.
15.
So what has he taught you? What has your son taught you?
One thing that my dad made sure that we knew was that there was more outside of Toledo, Ohio. So we traveled when we had the chance to travel, but he made sure that there was more outside of Toledo, Ohio. So with that being said, my son, along with my daughters, they tell me or ask me, they've asked once or twice, what did granddad do with you? You and your sisters, you and our aunties. What did granddad do with you? Well, if he done it with you, can you do it with us? So that's the way that they're wanting his memory to be, that's the way they want his memory to be introduced to them. Because my son was so young before my dad passed, so they really didn't have any recollection of, how I grew up, so the memories that I have, they want me to introduce those memories to them, and do the things that we used to do. Wow. Granddad took you down to Texas. Granddad took you to, you guys went to this amusement park. You guys went to that amusement park. Those are the things that they want his memory to be played out through me.
Okay.
So like I said, it's a blessing, that I have that opportunity to be able to do the things that I done with my dad, with my kids.
Absolutely.
It's definitely a blessing.
Definitely. I mean, you're keeping the legacy alive. Your kids are an extension of who you are and that of your father. So that's a wonderful thing, because there are a lot of kids out there who unfortunately don't have that
Right.
in their lives, and they make decisions that are not supportive or not as warm and inviting and welcoming to help them move to greater things. because they're trying to find substitution.
Right.
And for you, you are able to, it's not necessarily a substitution for you. You're just carrying on the tradition and the legacy that your father and the rest of the family had bestowed upon you onto your kids. So that's a blessing in itself. I first of all, Ernie, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to sit down and talk with me and share with my audience, you know, to give us a little insight of what your father has meant to you and to others, and just, the importance of being able to be a father, um, and the lessons that you've learned not only from him, but also from what your children, especially your son, has taught you
Right.
about being a dad. And with this being the Father's Day special episode, my last question to you is, if if your father was right here with you today in 2023, what is the one thing you believe he would share with you and your son and your daughters when it comes to healing?
The only way to heal is to store away memories of good times. That's the only way to heal and to get over whatever you may be going through. Whether it is old stories, old pictures, that's the way you heal. Even VHSs, even though that's kind of a relic
Really?
nowadays.
Show the VCRs, really?
That's kind of a relic, and I'm sure the
Do you have one? Do you
I,
still have a
I
VCR?
I still have a
Does it
VCR, but
work?
it has a DVD player, so I can switch the
But does it work?
VHS. Yes, I can switch the VHSs over to DVDs.
Oh my goodness, you still have one of those that
Yeah,
works.
it allows me to move everything over to DVD.
Okay.
So granted, like I said, you know, those pictures, those memories, those stories, that's how you heal. And the only way, sometimes you may need to go back and live that past. And that's the only way to heal from anything. You may have to go back. And you going back is through those pictures. You going back is through those stories. You going back is old voicemails, old letters,
Mhm.
old songs.
Mm,
That's the only way to heal.
absolutely, brother. I can tell you, to this day, I still have my parents' phone number in my phone. I
Yeah,
have not erased it at all.
yeah,
I don't think I'm ever going to erase it. If I get a new phone, guess what? All those numbers are still going with me.
yeah,
It can belong to somebody else. I'm not gonna call because that's too painful for me. But
yeah,
that number and my dad's picture, my mom's picture with her number, it's still in my phone. So I
yeah. I
totally get it.
still have my house number in there, and it's still under mom and dad. It's
See,
not just mom; it's
right.
mom and dad still.
Exactly. Well, Ernie, thank you again so much for this. I definitely want to wish you a wonderful Father's Day. You have truly been a wonderful example of what it means to be a father. I know that the journey that your son had been through and, may still continue to do so from time to time has has tested you from moment to moment, but you're still standing still, you're still in prayer, you're still holding strong to that of your faith. And that speaks volumes in itself because of the simple fact is it's not easy. It's not easy to be surrounded by things that could cause enormous amounts of grief. And yet, you still know that there's a light at the end of the tunnel. That light, where your father may be standing behind you with his hand on your shoulder, letting you know that I'm still with you, even when I may not be physically present. You know, your love for your father continues to shine outwardly when you talk to us on your post, or even when you show that same love to that of your children and your wife and all those who have the pleasure of being in your company and fellowshipping with you. So from me to you, brother, happy Father's Day. Thank you so much.
I humbly appreciate it. I really do. I humbly appreciate it. And believe me, I'm going to take it one day at a time.
Yeah.
My story's not done being told,
Yeah.
neither is my son's.
Absolutely. No, your story is still being written. Trust
Yeah,
and believe that. It's
yeah,
still right. There's a lot of chapters that have yet to be written out. And
yeah.
yeah, it's being written out each and every single moment that you're still here with us. So again, I just want to thank you so much. I look forward to reconnecting with you again later on. Maybe I'll see you at homecoming. I don't know, but you're fam. So
Yeah.
anytime you ever need to talk, reach out. We can swamp stories about our pops being Kappa men, and I can't talk about Kappa because that's all you. But still, anytime you got me, there's a whole support system out there for
Yeah.
you, brother, especially with us as K-State thoroughbreds. So just come and reach out to us. So I appreciate it.
I humbly appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And for everybody who joined us today on this special Father's Day episode, thank you so much. I hope you all were able to gain a little bit more insight on what it means to be a father, and also just live in the moment. If your fathers are still with you, give them a call, wish them a happy Father's Day, tell them you love them, be present. And again, for those of you who may be experiencing having your father not being there with you, our hearts go out to you all. Condolences to you on your loss. Just know that they're still with you even when they're not. And if this is a challenging time, I hope this day was a gentle day for you all. And please understand and just recognize that it is part of the journey, but it doesn't mean you have to be alone in this portion of the journey. So from me to you, take care, and we'll see you soon. Take care. Have a beautiful day.
Thank you. Happy Father's Day.
Happy Father's Day, everybody.
Thank you for listening, being intentional, and sharing this moment with us. We at It's Not You, It's Grief deeply understand the many facets of grieving, and we want to make sure we can be here for you. Again, thank you for listening, and tune in again wherever you subscribe to podcasts. We look forward to seeing you next time. Be well.